Welcome to 40s and Free Agents. I'm Gregg Rosenthal, joined by my friend Daniel Jeremiah in a hotel in Mobile, Alabama. We have our two teams for Super Bowl 60 set, and DJ is in Mobile. That's how you know we are getting deep into this football calendar and draft season is really getting going.
Yeah, some people have referred to it now as 40s and free agent season, you know, like it really is where the name, well chosen at that, comes into play. We're getting closer to free agency. Getting closer to 40s. We've got some players out here, so it's going to be fun. I will tell you, I did get some feedback in the league on the show, Gregg.
Wow.
Which love to pass this along. It felt almost like a Tom Brady backhanded compliment to Sam Darnold throughout that entire game, which was, hey, I really like the new pod. Yeah, like it surprisingly, yeah, it's good. And it was like, kind of snuck that little surprisingly in there. I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll take it, right?
I will take that. I don't know what that says about your other podcast. You have another podcast, right?
I think it was more about the new person I was working with. Yeah. Like I think the expectations there, and then they're like, you know what? He's not bad. He's so okay. Good for you. Good for you.
Who is that guy? Look, why don't we start with the Super Bowl quickly, because we've been doing the kind of autopsy of the teams that went out, and so we'll talk Broncos, Rams in a second. We're also going to talk about your big top 50 list, which came out. And then we're going to do kind of an overview. We're doing a little bit of everything. It is free agency season of the free agent quarterbacks that will be available, maybe some guys that could get cut and some trade options. But just on those games, I did kind of want to mention wonder if you find this interesting. Between these two teams, the Seahawks and the Patriots, guess where they ranked in free agency spending from a year ago?
Oh, well, I know the Patriots just might be number one, right? They threw out massive amount of money.
They were first by quite a bit. That's correct.
And then Seattle, obviously the Darnold money. They had, I want to say they did the linebacker, right? But I don't think a lot after Sam. I would say middle of the road.
They finished fourth in free agency spending. I think the Darnold contract goes a long way. Yeah. There weren't a lot of $100 million contracts, and technically, even though it felt like a good deal, it is. And so if you just look at total money in all the contracts given, the number one team in terms of spending, the number four team in terms of spending, they also spend big money on DeMarcus Lawrence. You mentioned Ernest Jones. Some of it was re-signing their own players like Ernest Jones, but
that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I'm not going to. Cooper Kupp was another guy who got a lot of money. If you think about, like, obviously you want to build through the draft, but this Patriots team especially, they hit on almost everyone. And I do wonder if all the spending that they did, Milton Williams, Stephon Diggs, Carlton Davis, Robert Spillane, some of the lower guys like Garrett Bradbury, Morgan Moses, Kayvon Chason, they're all making impacts. You can really turn things around in free agency if you get the right guys.
Well, the other thing that's interesting, if you were looking at it from the free agency standpoint, I can then also look at it from the draft standpoint and say, look at the rookie impact that these teams have had. Give you two just right off the jump from Seattle. Look what Gray Zabel did to solidify that offensive line. And Nick Niemann-Wari, I don't know if you can say he's been a better defensive player than him on that team, which is right there with Houston, arguably the best defense in the NFL, and he's arguably their best player. That's on the rookie side. Then your Patriots, they've got rookies all over the place, the offensive line and the backfield at wide receiver. They've got rookies playing prominent roles as well. So it's interesting to see, hey, 40s free agents married together. They aced it. They both aced it in the offseason.
It is all happening, and there is a lot of salary cap space out there. Let's start talking about these teams that got knocked out. I was pleasantly surprised, I should have been on this, of what a good situation the Rams are in, because they spent a couple of years digging out of some expensive contracts. They have $45 million in cap space. You know that they have the 2 first-round picks, the 13th overall pick and the 29th pick, and they have some real needs. I'm curious what you think maybe they would be before I throw mine out. But it might be where the free agents are. Cam Curl is a free agent at safety, solid player for them. Kobe Durant was pretty good for them at cornerback. Roger McCreary, who they traded for as a free agent. But very few free agents. draft picks up at the top of the draft and a ton of cap space. They are in position to keep pushing and try to get over the hump this year.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I had them doing, which, by the way, you turn this thing in, this mock draft, like a week before, and then the day before, their secondary gets torched, and becomes even a more pronounced issue. So the Rams fans did not like me not giving them a corner there at 13. But I had them taking Mekhi Lemon from USC. And you say, okay, gosh, why would you go back to the receiver? Well, I'm like, well, first of all, I don't know there's a human being put on this earth that's a better fit than what they already have there with Puka. But Mekhi Lemon is of that same ilk, and it would just be so fun to watch how creatively they could deploy those guys. You can line them up in the backfield, slot out wide, just a real big-time playmaker. I think he's the best wide receiver in the draft, so I had him with their first pick. And then with their next pick, I had him taking a tackle in Blake Miller out of Clemson, who I think is a really, really underrated player, a good player. So I don't know that they have free agency where they can address some issues in the secondary that showed up, and obviously they have some free agents there on the roster they need to figure out. But I don't feel like it's a draft situation where you're going to be picking towards the bottom of the first round as good as that organization's run on most years. So just take best player available, get impact player there with your first one especially.
Yeah, Devontae Adams has 1 year left on his contract, but after cornerback, linebacker, those are two positions that they haven't really invested in high in the draft.
They find them later.
Or free agency. So I would be a little surprised if they did it high in the draft, but you could see them getting some veterans. But after that, actually, I did write receiver because, Devontae Adams, 1 year left on what's been a good contract. I'm sure he'll be back, but it's a pretty steep drop off after those top two. So you got to start thinking about the future. Offensive line depth would be up there too, but I think they're in a good spot. I also think they're going to need to maybe take care of Stafford's contract, which wasn't the easiest thing to do last year. And I thought he took a very team friendly deal, which kind of kicked the can of like, we'll deal with this again in a year. Now he has leverage, and I'm sure they will do right by him, and there's no reason to think that he's not going to want to be back and play for them, so they will figure that out, I'm sure.
By the way, our friend, I'm not going to say it's just your friend, our friend, Jordan Roderick, did such a phenomenal job on the piece that she wrote. I mean, she's incredible. Literally, when she does these types of articles, I get pumped when I see it come across my feed, and so went through and read that whole thing. And if you haven't read it, I would encourage people to go read it because it's a great look of how they've reinvented this whole thing with the Rams and the incredible job that they've done. And now they've got assets now to do that going forward. So I'm fascinated to see how they do it. They're a 12, 13 personnel team. And now I think everybody thinks, okay, well, that's where they're going to stay and that's where they're going to live. And I'm like, I don't know. Every time you think you've got them figured out, they pivot. So what's the next pivot going to be?
I would call Jordan a friend. Everyone should check that piece out. And she noted in her post-game piece, too, which was different, just coming off the game, kind of how special teams has let them down over and over again. Maybe that they will invest more there. But, yeah, if people like podcasts, like your friends in the league, they're just hearing about this one. She's on a great podcast called NFL Daily multiple times a week. You should check that one out. It's got a great host.
Yeah, one day.
The Broncos, $27 million in cap space. And again, another team in a really good situation. Not a lot, with both these teams, I didn't see a lot of logical cuts where you needed to take someone off the books because they had a bad contract. Like Darius Williams was one for the Rams. Evan Ingram maybe would be one for the Broncos, but I thought he was okay for them. But he's sort of part of the biggest issue I see on their team, which is just more explosion from any skill possession. I mean, you could take it at running back. They could use another one. J.K. Dobbins is a free agent. Wide receiver, I think they have guys they like. Do they have guys teams are afraid of? I'm not so sure. Tight end. So any one of them, I think you could take best possible weapon, maybe near the top of the draft or in free agency.
Yeah, I still think he doesn't have the tight end that he wants. I think that can take that to the next level. And I mean, I know the expectation for Evan Ingram coming into last year was so high. Trust me, I picked him way too high in a fantasy football league with all my high school friends, and that did not work out great. But I still think that's an area where they get a big time guy. He always just likes the bigger receivers. So there are some guys in this draft. Denzel Boston is one of them from University of Washington. Big, physical, explosive, going to be there at that point later on in the draft. So later in the first round. So maybe that's an option for him at that point in time. But man, traditionally he's not really enamored with the speed on the outside as much as he wants just big body, ball winners.
but maybe they can, get a higher quality player there. No offense to little Jordan Humphrey, but I'm just still surprised in big moments, that they're going to him, who he brought from New Orleans. But both these teams, and this was not true when we went through this entire exercise, I thought were in really good positions in terms of, I think they want to get younger eventually on both lines. It's a really stable, talented offensive line and defensive line, but not a lot of really young players. So they're in the perfect position in terms of team building, where I think they can think a year or two ahead and get some of those premium positions. But there's no reason to think that they won't be back in the mix next year. And I mean it. Maybe this is Patriots privilege. I wish Bo Nix was out there for that game, because I think it gives an asterisk to it, along with the weather, where I just would have liked to seen what Bo Nix and that team could have done. And if they beat the Patriots, so be it. But it would have been better to see it on a even playing field.
Anything can happen on any given Sunday. Everybody all knows that. But Greg, even as someone who's a fan of the Patriots,
yes,
and I know the weather was an issue, but that was a Sunday of all Sundays that it felt like watching the JV game, which led into the varsity game. Yeah.
But you could have said the same in some other years, including when the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl. I know they didn't end up winning, but they came about a play away from doing it. Maybe even in 01, when the people thought it was the JV Patriots when they were going against that Rams team. So it's not necessarily predictive of what's going to happen next, but I completely agree.
The caliber of football played in that other game was just on a whole nother level, man.
I completely agree. I think the defenses in the AFC were strong, and the weather was not helping. But all season, I believe that the Seahawks and the Rams were the two best teams in the entire NFL, and it played out that way. I mean, I think we'll look back at that trilogy that they have. I can't think of many other examples like that in my time covering the league, where two great teams in the same division play each other 3 times in one season. They're all kind of classics. I think history is going to look back on those games fondly. Rams fans don't want to hear it, but it was kind of for the average football fan, it was great. And you know what else was great was the Patriots coming through. Not just because I'm a fan, but do you remember, DJ, back at the beginning of the season, we did a whole episode drafting our potential Super Bowl winners. And now that we have made the Super Bowl, we each have one team remaining.
That's incredible, man.
I have the Patriots. You have the Seahawks. And guess where they were taken in each conference? Actually, you should know this because our producer told us right before the show.
Let's see if you were listening. So it was 9th. Yeah, 9th.
Okay, it was 9th. They were each 9th in the conference, which another great friend of ours, Chris Wirtz, was saying, what a league. Like, before the start of the season, barely anyone was putting either of these teams in the playoffs. Even the two of us who drafted them, we had them 9th in the conference each. And now here they are in the Super Bowl.
You're like the show Deal or No Deal, and you're looking up on the stage, and there's like 6 briefcases up there, and I've got like 5 of them, and I'm like, I'm going to be fine. And then just watching one of mine just get plucked off one after, and your lone little suitcase up there just hanging out, and now there's only 2 suitcases left. How about that?
Yes, I conveniently forgot to update this draft when the playoffs started, and we learned that DJ had something like 10 or 11 of the 14 teams left, and then 6 of the final 8 in the divisional round. But in the end,
3 of the 4.
Patriots got through, and 3 out of 4 last week. And Drake May is going to get it done for me in the Super Bowl. Before we take a break, let's talk a little bit about your top 50 list, which is coming out. This is a big day. Well, how does it feel to be a newsmaker? Or just the little, I like making lists. I make little free agency, different lists since I was a kid. But when you make a list, like, it makes news. It can make people money. You got agents calling you thinking they're going to get more on their 3% or whatever it is just because you're putting them higher on the list. It's a lot of responability, DJ. I hope you're working hard.
That's not how those calls go. Those calls go, how the heck do you not have my guy XYZ? You got to talk to more people in the league. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But this will give you, this is the first, and I'm not even exaggerating, Greg. This is the first comment that I saw, because I've evolved from the state of, I used to look at it and get mad. And then I was like, okay, just don't look at comments. And then you get to the point where you're like, okay, I can look at them and not get mad. And now I'm to the place where I just look at them and laugh. Like I can't get enough of them. It's like a guilty pleasure to watch these. So this was my, let me pull it up here. My first, This is the first reply that I saw. If we draft a white safety from Oregon, I will lose my bleeping mind. That was the first one.
Yeah, at least that's funny. At least that's funny.
I guarantee you he has never seen him play. He's never seen Heineman play. And he's just like, a white safety from Oregon? Like, no.
Shout out to Cooper DeJean, who I think starting to open the eyes and maybe the hearts and the minds of the scouts like yourself out there to just be judging what's happening on the field. Reed Blankenship doing it too. Riley Moss, I think, had an underrated season. It's happening.
Yeah, Cooper DeJean was in my top 20 players. I remember talking to Howie Roseman on the phone after night one saying, I can't believe this guy didn't go. And then Howie Roseman made sure that didn't last very long.
One of the best at his position, maybe the best right now, an all-pro back-to-back years. Okay, your list. 2 quarterbacks in the top 50. Yes.
We'll start the top 10 here. Fernando Mendoza, quarterback from Indiana, Heisman Trophy winner, national champ. He's number 1. And this, again, is how I see him. The mock draft is with my ears, top 50 with my eyes. So Fernando Mendoza, quarterback from Indiana, number 1. Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, running back, number 2. That's based off just the grade that I gave him. He's a phenomenal player. Arvell Reese is this continuation of what we've seen over the last handful of years, which is off the ball linebackers who twilight some on the ball and project at the NFL level as being outside edge rushers. So he's a freaky athlete out of Ohio State. David Bailey was a highly sought after transfer out of Stanford. Texas Tech paid him a ton of money, and he helped lead that defense, get them into the college football playoff. Really dynamic, explosive, tons of production. He's 4th on the list. Sonny Styles, do yourself a favor. Your first homework assignment, Greg, for this draft season. Sonny Styles, just type in Sonny Styles basketball and watch Sonny Styles basketball highlights in high school. It's going to be the best thing that you see through the whole draft season. He is a freak show. Ruben Bain, if you've watched any college football, you know who he is. A real violent, just a fun, physical edge rusher at Miami is 6. Mekhi Lemons, my top receiver. He's number 7 out of USC, right in the same school as Amon-Ra St. Brown, similar play style and temperament, all that good stuff. Mansour Delane, a corner from LSU. Corners from LSU, you feel pretty safe about that. Really, really good, just consistent player every game that you watch this year. Carnell Tate from Ohio State. He is number 9. I'll be honest, as I was doing more people after I did this list and I watched some more crossover tape of Ohio State, I thought, 9 might be too low. Carnell Tate is not going to go south. He's probably only going to go north from here, starting at the 9th spot. And then his teammate, Caleb Downs, is number 10. So if you're counting at home, that is 4 of the top 10 players from the Ohio State University.
Does that mean they underachieved a little bit in the playoffs?
I think it's a great, because we do team building in our show. I think it's a great reminder. They had pass rushers. They had, stud linebackers, stud receivers. The best player is not even in this list, is going to be in next year's draft with Jeremiah Smith. You know what they didn't have? An offensive line that could block Indiana and that could block Miami, and they're done. Lose a Big Ten championship, lose a playoff game because they weren't good enough up front offensively. Yeah,
so we have 3 edge players in the top 6. It's pretty even between offense and defense. I like the quarterback, running back to start. You mentioned maybe Lemon as a Rams possible choice. You have 2 quarterbacks in the top 50, Mendoza, number 1, and then Ty Simpson, number 40. So you have him as like an early day 2 type of prospect. I'm curious, before we do take that break, Mendoza versus some of the quarterbacks that have come out near the top in recent years. Maybe not necessarily playing style comps, but like where they're at as a level of prospect in terms of where you're at, in your evaluation.
Sure. We start from, to me, let's start on the high end, which was a couple years ago, represented by Drake May, who was my second quarterback in that class. It was Caleb, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. All 3 of those guys would carry a higher grade in the pre-draft process than you would see with Fernando Mendoza. But in that same class, Bo Nix, who's we've seen have tremendous success in the unfortunate injury in the playoffs, had a higher grade on Mendoza than Nix coming through the process, had a higher grade on Mendoza than last year's top quarterback for me in Cam Ward, who ended up being the first overall pick. And in terms of comparisons, Same grade to another player going in the Wayback Machine, who was the number 1 overall pick and in NFL MVP. Can you figure that one out? Who that is? Same grade.
Your comparisons. And
this was my comparison, and it was my comparison for this reason.
Oh, I got it.
Go ahead.
Matt Ryan.
Yes, that's it. That was my comp, because
I was like, Teddy Bridgewater didn't win an MVP, but
people forget Matt Ryan in college could move around a little bit, and then that's where the Matty Ice thing. This guy was ultra competitive, late in games, like fiery. Just found a way to win. Now it's a little different personality, but when Fernando Mendoza got hit, when he got beat up, and then big moments, he could step his game up, and guys kind of rallied around him, similar to Matt Ryan there.
And will just like deliver a big time throw when you're least expecting it. And Matt Ryan had more just talent, I think, than people give him credit. So that's a fun comp. I feel like I'm on my back foot here. I got to start doing my homework on this draft, but I'm ranking all the free agents. We're getting that top 101 list ready. We're going to take a break and come back, and we're going to talk about some of the quarterbacks that will be on that list and available this offseason. We are back on 40s and free agents. About half of the NFL head coaching jobs are settled around the NFL. In this little segment, DJ, we're going to talk about the teams that are desperately in need of a quarterback, that need one, that face some questions, and talk about the players that will be available. It will not surprise you that many of the teams needing a quarterback also found a new coach or a new play caller. There's like not a lot of carryover for teams like, let's say, Miami, that is basically starting at scratch at quarterback.
I love it. By the way, when you're in a hotel, this is a sign that you don't really care about what's going on with pop culture and new shows and things. I can't even tell you how many times I've done this where it's just the TV just stays on the little screen when you check in. I just realized it's been on this whole time, and it's just, I don't know if this is going to get into some Mario Lopez movie previews here pretty soon, but it's trending in that direction.
Does it say your name? Is it that nice of a hotel where it's like, hello, Daniel Jeremiah?
Yes. Okay. Welcome, Daniel. Thank you for staying at the Battle House. Thank you. Huh? How about that?
That's how you know you're big time, that you're making that coin. You're not making as much as Malik Willis is about to make, though. So the best free agency options, it's going to be Malik Willis. It's going to be Daniel Jones. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers. I had a longer list, and there's all these backups. I think our producer just deleted them all because he just doesn't want to be talking about the riffraff out there that's just going to kind of be filling these backup spots. But it's interesting that Rodgers might have a path back to Pittsburgh now because of Mike McCarthy. Ultimately, I don't think that should be option number one for them. Do you think a team like Pittsburgh or Miami or whoever's out there and just has nothing should be looking at Malik Willis?
I think everybody that's not settling at the quarterback position should be interested in Malik Willis, especially when you're not going to be in the mix for the number 1 overall pick in this draft. As we've discussed, I think there's a big drop off after that. And I'd stack Malik Willis up quite favorably. And he's not old. Like he's still just getting going.
That one game, it's risky, but now you can look at a bunch of games. It's not just that one start, but the one against the Bears when he came in, there was such a variety of the high quality.
He looked so fast. God, he looked like the fastest guy on the field.
So if you get the right coach with him, and so we'll see. Jeff Hafley hired Bobby Slowick as his offensive coordinator. Not like an amazing run in Houston, but they're a team that's going to be looking for one. I want to mix up kind of the teams and the quarterbacks. Then you can give me some of your thoughts. My category of teams that were desperate were the Dolphins, the Jets, the Browns. Sorry, Shadur fans. The Steelers.
That's and by the way.
That is a Pro Bowler. Yeah. Feels a lot like Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley from a few years ago, where he only played 4 games, I believe, but got a lot of joke votes from Ravens fans. No one remembers that, but I remember that. And then the Raiders, who you figure are just going to take Mendoza. By the way, are you just assuming that while I got you here?
Look, we've been surprised before, but I would be stunned unless. I can't think of a scenario where that would not be the case. I was going to say, do they hire somebody who's connected to one of these other quarterbacks they could potentially get. You know, is it, you know, with Mac Jones or, you know, obviously Malik who you're talking about, but I can't envision that.
Right. And I was wondering, because Hafley was with Malik Willis in Green Bay, whether he would have an offensive coach that had familiarity. And we don't know about the assistants who are coming in there. It's still early in the process, because that would have been a logical spot for him. To me, Pittsburgh would be intriguing. It seems a little crazy to me to be rolling out Rodgers and McCarthy in 26, but that's me. I don't think that's a good plan.
I mean, I thought it was over. I thought there's no chance I thought the Aaron Rodgers Pittsburgh thing, we saw it. It's over. That chapter's closed. And then McCarthy got hired, and I'm like, well, maybe they try and squeeze one more year out. To me, like we're talking about what could happen and different potential scenarios. If we flip the conversation to what I think is best for Pittsburgh, to me, I would roll with what you have right now on the roster, and I would actually want to see Will Howard. If it's anywhere close in a competition, I'd want to see Will Howard win it, because I don't know that there's a bad scenario there. He plays well, and you're like, oh my gosh, we've got this 6-round quarterback who won a national championship. Turns out he was better than people thought, and it cost us nothing. Or it goes terrible, and in a draft that, at least from this far out, looks like it's going to be pretty good at that position, you're going to be picking up there for once, instead of being in the Pittsburgh Steelers no man's land where they've been.
Well, our colleague Tom Pelissero, who seems to have a strong in with McCarthy, he's often front and center on McCarthy news, said that McCarthy was a big fan of Will Howard in the draft process and kind of wants to see how he looks. And it's tricky, because I think McCarthy, based on all the reporting, sold himself as a guy. They're not looking to rebuild. I mean, we talked about their roster. They actually they have plenty of cap room. They have a lot of talented players. They actually don't have many contracts, I think, that they need to get rid of. There's this idea that they need to, change the whole roster. That's not how the Steelers do business. They're not going to do that. They're going to want to compete and develop and find a quarterback, and getting Will Howard a chance might be part of that. I got to assume Daniel Jones is going back to the Colts. So then, the free agency crop is not great. You start looking at the trade options, and atop my list here would be Kyler Murray, Tanner McKee. Ooh. Kirk Cousins played pretty well at the end of last season, I got to say. Mm-hmm. And there's no guarantee that they're going to cut him or trade him, but he's an option. And Tua Tagovailoa, who has a contract that's going to be difficult to move, but move he shall one way or another, whether he's cut or
Mac is below those guys.
Yeah, Mac Jones is in there too. Kyle Shanahan immediately said, I can't see a situation.
That seemed like that was a leverage play, is what it felt like to me.
And he's done those over the years. Cynthia Freeland on our show Game Day View always calls Kyle Shanahan, who she knows well, the lying liar who lies, talking about his press conferences and with affection, that he's always doing some sort of leverage thing. But I don't know. You have a great backup in Mac Jones for very little money. Yeah. And you have a quarterback who's missed a lot of games, and you're trying to win a Super Bowl. I tend to trust him that Mac Jones is unlikely to get the draft pick that they would require to actually move on from. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone would give up a 2 or something for Mac Jones.
Yeah, well, let's see who, how the game of musical chairs goes down, and who's left looking at their other options going, maybe I will pay a little extra there on Mac Jones.
How about Kyler Murray in a place like Pittsburgh, or in a place that's more of a rebuilding type of place like the Jets or the Browns?
I'm just thinking of when Kyler was coming out, and, I said, I thought, man, kind of just with his size and then the speed, ideally a West Coast place indoors. That's where he was. So yeah. I mean, it wasn't, here's the thing. It wasn't that bad though. It's bad. I know it was a lot of good in there before it got sideways there, but I like him in the NFC South. I think the NFC South, the AFC South, the West, to me, I don't know if I want to throw Kyler Murray. When I worked in those, with those teams in that division, and I worked in Baltimore and I worked in Cleveland, and then, even in Philadelphia, you wanted guys in that weather and in that environment and the physicality in those divisions, just wanted a bigger guy. And I'm not saying smaller quarterbacks can't be successful. I'm just saying you got to find the right fit. And I don't know if Pittsburgh if that one necessarily feels right when there's like no footing on the field and it's snowing. He's going to look so small and not be able to utilize his athleticism. I think that kind of strips away his superpower.
He doesn't sound like a Steeler. I definitely buy that. Miami could possibly be an option. Kansas City is an interesting one out there. I had a category of just needs a quarterback, like needs one, but they're not desperate. And Kansas City would be in that category because I don't think you want to rush Patrick Mahomes back, but Gardner Minshew is also coming off of a season-ending injury that happened even later. He's not going to be back anytime soon. I would imagine you're trying to win a Super Bowl next year. You have Patrick Mahomes coming back on the field at some point. Would, one of these guys, maybe even a Tanner McKee or a short-term pickup for Tua, and it's almost like a rejuvenation project where you have Tua starting for like a month before Mahomes gets ready. I think they're an interesting player in this entire quarterback kind of ecosystem this offseason.
I will give you a little background on that, and not having talked to anybody, but just having worked with Andy Reid for 2 years. I remember being at the combine and where we were picking and the quarterbacks we were talking to. And I just had to ask him, like, Coach, like, why are we're not going to get Robert Griffin III? Like he's like, I like talking to all the top quarterbacks every year because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen free agency. And he's just really, really good at developing relationships and making an impression on those guys. So like, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he'd met with Kyler, even though he knew he would have no chance of ever, of drafting him at that point in time.
That would be an interesting one. Do you have any hot takes on Tanner McKee? I don't know if you've been grinding the preseason Eagles tape, but he's looked pretty good in the preseason. Very good in some regular season performances. Not as good in Week 18 this year, but not bad. But I do think there could be a market for Tanner McKee out there.
I was living in Marietta at the time, and there was a high school playoff game, and it was a big time high school program was coming into play. Marietta Valley was Centennial High School, which like where I remember from when Vontaze Burfict had gone there, but have since gone on to be a national powerhouse. So I'm like, I'm going to take my two boys were young at the time. I'm going to take them to this high school game. So I go there. I don't know any of these kids, but it's right across the street from my house. So I'm going to go watch it. This quarterback's out there. He's like 6'6", and he's just running. He's running around, making plays with his legs and slinging it. And I'm in the stadium, and I called David Shaw, who I had worked with, and I go, Coach, he's at Stanford, the head coach. And I go, Coach, I said, do you know anything about this quarterback at Centennial? He's like, yeah, I think we're getting him. And I'm like, well, you're getting a good one. This guy is talented, man. Like you could see it as a high school kid that there's a lot of ability there. So he was a much talked about, much ballyhooed player going all the way back to then.
And I think he's like developed. He's been in the quarterback factory. Maybe the Eagles won't want to let him go, but he has been a topic of conversation in Philadelphia, someone that could be possible cuts. I would throw Kirk Cousins in there as well. They might just flat cut him because they changed his contract. And for people that didn't watch late season Falcons, like I don't blame you. I think a lot of people probably saw that Monday night game against the Rams. That was typical. Like Kirk Cousins looked much better in 2025, a year further away from the surgery. He just looked like, worst case, like a solid backup to bridge quarterback, which is what you would expect. Now he's turning 38 years old. So some team, if it's not the Falcons, will want him. Justin Fields could be out there. Geno Smith could be out there. I don't think a lot of teams are going to get too excited about that. Anthony Richardson might be available.
Let me ask you a question here before I want to go back. If you are Kevin O'Connell, with where J.J. McCarthy is right now and how this team is ready to win right now, would you consider trying to bring Kirk back? And if at the absolute low end, he's insurance, at the high end, it's, hey, you compete. I think you can beat this guy out and reclaim this starting job here in Minnesota.
Yes, I would consider that. The problem is that almost to me says, actually, we do believe in JJ, because that to me just feels like a fallback plan if like it goes poorly with JJ. There's another whole route. I don't think
Kirk would look at it that way.
No,
I think he's going to look at it and say, I'm going to come here and beat this kid out.
He's going to go there and he's going to compete, and maybe he could. I don't think that's a bad option because you kind of know what you're getting. I think there's a whole nother world where they're in the Malik Willis business. I mean, I don't think there's another guy that would be a fit out of the potentially available quarterbacks, but I mean, they could aim even higher than Kirk Cousins potentially.
Interesting.
Things change fast. I do remember there was like an NFL Films clip of Kevin O'Connell hugging Anthony Richardson after one game or whatever. And he's like, you're still going to make it. Believe in yourself, bro. And they're like, this is what real coaches do. This is what quarterback, And so who knows? Maybe he'd give Anthony Richardson a test drive at some point.
There you go. I think it'll be one that people will want. I don't think that anybody's going to be scared of JJ McCarthy's presence. And I think they'd be excited to play with the guys that they have there on the perimeter.
And I threw the Texans in just as like a question mark that I would answer myself. I don't think they're going to consider doing anything at quarterback. I think they fully believe in C.J. Stroud. He has 2 years left on his contract. Davis Mills is a good backup who's also under contract.
Whoa.
Yes.
I think you can make the statement that they believe in C.J. Stroud. Mm-hmm. If you make the statement they fully believe in C.J. Stroud, that means you're going to get this deal done sooner than later. And I would be surprised if they did that huge deal with him after the way that went down at the end of the year. It's one thing to say, we're not looking to replace you. It's another thing saying we're going to sign you up to be the next, bazillion-dollar quarterback, where that number lies at this point in time. That would surprise me.
That's a fair way to split the difference. I think they're going to want to stand pat where they're at with him and Davis Mills. They're going to have to pick up the 5th year of his rookie deal. They will do that. It wouldn't totally shock me if he comes and he's having a good camp and everything, and then quietly he actually takes a little bit of a below market deal and does sign like a 3 or 4 year contract. Maybe it's shorter term, but you're right. They probably are going to stay away from that because they don't want to insult him with an offer that's too low. But there's always an opportunity to maybe save a little money long term. That's our veteran situation. We'll be tracking it on 40s and free agents throughout February draft. It's all happening. It's not the best quarterback draft in the world or free agency, but
sometimes we get it wrong. So I can go back to egg on my face on Patrick Mahomes. I didn't know that he was going to end up being our the best player that's ever put cleats on. I didn't see that one coming. So you never know.
Here's the thing. There's got to be a lot of movement between the rookies and the veterans. You might not be excited for some of these names that are out there. Plenty of them are going to be playing, because think of the teams that are going to be needing someone to play. Miami, New York, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Las Vegas. There's questions in Atlanta. There's certainly questions in Minnesota. The Cardinals have Jacoby Brissett, but they'll probably look to get one. The Chiefs, that's a lot of teams and not a lot of names. So we will be tracking that over the next
You didn't say Geno,
couple of months.
No Geno.
I threw Geno in there, but I just didn't want to take the inevitable shot that you were like, oh yeah, Geno's washed, Geno's done. He'll get somewhere.
Whatever happened to his old team?
I think maybe Minnesota for Geno. How about him as JJ's backup? That could work. Yeah, put him in that system.
JJ be okay with that.
You know what? Your Sam Darnold takes are aging well. So I applaud you for not just.
But did I even? I don't even think I brought up his name during this episode. Did I? I don't think I did.
You pretty much just did. You also nailed the Cooper Kupp contract with Seattle last year. Saying the level of money.
That seems like a million years ago.
That he was going to get. Not a ton of production, but some massive plays in the playoffs.
He plays, man.
I'm going to say in the playoffs, if he was producing these type of game-changing plays throughout the regular season, they would love it. And this is what it's all about, is winning a Super Bowl. They got a chance to do it, and they got a chance to do it for you. Your guys, Darnold and Kupp, playing for your honor. Did we ever say what's at stake here for who's going to win this draft?
I don't think we did, but I feel good about my chances.
Maybe you have to host the show. Maybe you have to host a show.
Oh, okay.
Or you could put your name
We're
first.
saying if the audience wins. Is that what we're saying? I thought we were saying if one of us won.
Everyone wins. We will be back next week. You can recap the Senior Bowl, everything going down in Mobile. We are getting closer and closer, obviously, to the Super Bowl and to free agency. We will see you next time.